You being you is so freeing for everybody else. But that's the fear we live in, is that somebody is going to not like who I am.
You are going to know me. You're going to know my strong points, but that also means you're going to know my weak points, and allowing people to be there for you at your lowest and your darkest.
I'm just there to say, it's going to be okay. You're going to make it.
And what's deep inside you, in your core that's been planted there, is what's going to come to the surface. So what are you planting?
That is the longing we have inside of us. Tell me who God says I am.
Welcome to Authentic You, a podcast brought to you by the Women of Jesus Culture.
Welcome to our second women's podcast. I am CJ Leipsher, the lead pastor with my husband Banning Leipsher at JC Sacramento. And I am here with my co-hosts,
Erica
and Becky, youth pastor at JC Sacramento.
Very important.
Yes, it's very important. I deal with the youths, and so I have a lot of knowledge about them.
Oh, yes.
You do. You keep our kids in check.
Yeah, I do. Well, this is our second time around the table. How are you guys feeling? CJ,
Great.
Nervous at all?
Always a little nervous.
How did it feel putting up the first one?
I loved it. I love that we're getting our voice out there, that what we're doing is being real and authentic and just sharing our lives, what God's doing in us and what God's doing in our area.
Yeah, we had Sherry Silk on, a great friend of ours. She'll be back on the podcast often, and we shared her message, Love Wins, and a really powerful word, and it was fun chatting with her. So this is really just an excuse for us to get together, really, and hang out and talk with our friends, pretty much. But
Pretty much.
We have an incredible message from Chris Valentin, who is one of the pastors at Bethel Church in Redding, California. And he runs the school there, the Bethel School of Ministry. And he came down. He's a good friend of ours and a great friend, father really, to Banning and CJ. And he came down for our women's gathering and shared a message on the power of belonging. And it was just such a profound message. The minute he finished, we knew, this has got to be the next women's podcast. We want to share this message with everybody. So we're really excited to dive into it and talk about what impacted us, and then let you hear the sermon at the end of this podcast. But before we get into that, CJ, tell us about what's going on here in Sacramento. It's really exciting what's happening within our women's community here at the church.
Well, I started having these women's gatherings. To be honest, I didn't really like women's ministry, so it was a big stretch for me to put on this first gathering and just figure out, how can I do this and genuinely be who God's made me to be and bring who God's made me to be, and not just do a good service, a church service, because that wouldn't be me to put on a church service. So processed a lot with Erica, with Becky. We sat down and dreamed, what does this look? And we have been so amazed at the women that come to these meetings. And actually what has come out of it has been real connection and real community. And it comes from women choosing to be vulnerable, choosing to be authentic, choosing to share their hearts with each other in a situation that is easy to show up and not bring yourself. But they have chosen to bring themselves, and we are starting to see a community like I haven't seen before. We do 4 of these meetings a year, and a big thing for Banning and I both when we started the church was that we didn't want to do church for people. We didn't want to gather people. We didn't want to do small groups and then people get to attend. We wanted people to actually bring themselves, gather people together, build community themselves, and see what happens. And in the women's community, they are really doing it. We have a Facebook page that women have just started. They pour their hearts out. They share their needs. They meet each other's needs. I remember one time I saw a woman post on there, "Hey, I'm new. This took all the guts I had to say, but I need friends." And she had 25 responses of people willing to go to coffee with her. And it was so inspiring to me that I knew what it cost her to put herself out there. And from it, she has said she has the greatest friend she's ever had in her life.
That's amazing.
What I love about us doing this on this podcast is we want to talk to you, women, men, whatever, but about real stuff. But we're not just talking about it from a place of ideas. It's actually things that are happening in our community that we are seeing the real fruit of people putting themselves out there, the real fruit of being vulnerable and authentic in life.
Yeah. So, we'll say things like, go ask somebody to coffee, be vulnerable, be, maybe a little bit embarrassed and put yourself out there. But we're not saying it because it's theory, but it's because what we did ourselves, and it's what we're seeing women do here in our church. And it really, really is a beautiful thing. So, we're excited to bring you this message of Chris's, it's the power of belonging, like we said. And it's from our women's gathering that happened just 2 nights ago. So It's really fresh, and we're really stirred up about it. And we've got lots to share with you. And we just want to discuss it and kind of let you in on how it impacted us, and then let you hear the message. But before that, check this out. Hey, podcast listeners, we are so excited to tell you about our very own Kim Walker-Smith's brand new solo project, On My Side. This is her first solo studio project featuring brand new songs that explore the themes of heartbreak and triumph, and gives you, the listener, a glimpse into the past few years of Kim's journey with God. It's a beautiful album. We have all been playing it here at the office and really loving it, and we want to offer it to you for 10% off if you go to the JesusCulture.com store and use the code KIM10, KIM10. You can get that album for yourself at a discount just for being a JCLP family member. Again, that code is KIM10. Hop on, get the album, and let us know how you like it. Well, ladies, let's jump right into Chris's message and what we loved about it. There was just even, right before we came back on, talking about what we're going to talk about. There's so much good stuff. Yes. Erica, you had something really good about loving yourself.
Yeah.
Because you love yourself so much.
Yeah, something. Oh, absolutely.
But it ever struggle with
it. It took 35 years of my life to get there. No, I loved when Chris referred to the verse in the Bible where Jesus talks about how we should love others as we love ourselves. And what struck me just about that is that it is such an incredible part of our journey to take the time to get to know who we are and who God says we are. And because it directly affects the way we love others and how we allow others to love us.
How do you do that? Because, gosh, for women, it's so hard. There's so much pressure. I take those tests and I'm like, oh, I should have been a this, this, and this. Like, I'm a blah, 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 but I wish I was a blah, blah, blah. Or I'd be a better mom if I was a blah, blah, blah. There's so much pressure to compare. So how did you get to the place where you go, well, this is me and I like it?
God didn't make a mistake when he made you that way. So when you see a test that you think, oh, I should be blah, blah, blah to be a better mom, I feel like you're almost putting God down because God made you exactly the way he made you. And so therefore you are the perfect mom for your kid. You have exactly what you need. Does that mean we stop growing and challenging ourselves? Yeah. Never. But we're not coming from a spot of lack because God didn't make us with anything lacking. We're really okay. I'm okay that I have panic attacks and that I get scared of ridiculous things. I'm still okay. God's not ashamed. He's not mad at me. What do I do with that? How do I walk it out? How do I grow each day? But it's not from a place of lack.
Do you guys feel like you've seen a difference in, it says love others as you love yourself. Do you feel like when you got to the point where you could love yourself that it changed how you loved your family and your friends and your coworkers, your spouse even? Like, is it,
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you position your heart like that, you are in a place where you really can connect with the heart of the Father, which to me puts me immediately in a place of patience and grace, because I also understand that I am in no way perfect. So because he loves me and he created me, he didn't make a mistake, but I'm not perfect. I cuss sometimes. I get really mad in the car. I get very irritated at certain things, but it doesn't change the truth that he made me and he did a really good job. And I will forever be on a journey of growth and healing until I go to be with Jesus. So, and that I don't worry about because I feel like it is what it is. We are human.
Yeah.
And this is just this glorious life,
Yeah.
you know? So it does, I feel like there's that connection to the heart of the Father. It feels like it opens it a little bit wider for those things to flow from his heart to me. It's like that connection just opens a little bit wider. There's less gunk in the pipeline in a sense, you know, but I'm not talking about perfection.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about grace and patience and being able to look at someone else and put yourself in their shoes.
And then you get to love them because
for who they are, because I am
you know
loved
that you're loved for who you are.
I am.
Yeah.
I love how God made us all different because my journey with Love Others as Yourself has looked a little different. Erica's smart and she's good with her words and she thinks not with her emotions. I don't even know what that is. I'm like, I am one ball of emotions. So whichever one is leading the way tends to take over. But because of a nice friend, I'm not going to tell you guys any of the experiences I've had in the car with her that could out her.
My kids, no. They can show you things. And I still apologize.
Oh,
I'm
my
like,
goodness.
do not follow mom's example.
Oh my gosh.
But
That's the classic do as I say, not as I do.
Absolutely, I completely fail at that.
It makes me laugh so hard because she's actually a very nice person. But you should not ever go cut her off or go too slow in front of her.
my
Just don't do it.
goodness.
Don't do it, people. Stay clear. But my experience is a little different in that I was raised by a dad who he literally thinks I hung the moon and stars. And
awesome.
so I feel like it's given me grace for people because in the midst of him thinking that, it wasn't because I was great. Like I was actually a pain in the butt kid. I cried all the time. I was scared of everything. He couldn't leave me at school. He had to come pick me up. Like I was actually probably a difficult child. Yet he was like, I think you could be a singing star. I couldn't sing. Like I can't tell you how many things my dad thinks I could do. But I feel like I have this grace when I see people. My first instinct when somebody makes a mistake is, oh, it's okay. I probably did that too.
Oh, that's amazing.
Know? Yeah,
Yeah.
So that's what it looks like for me. But I think which I think my dad actually in the way he loved me has given me an easier way to understand how the Father loves us. He doesn't see those mistakes. He doesn't care that we just cussed out whoever on the road. He's like, you're actually an amazing mom, Erica, and look at all I've put in you. He's not thrown, and that is who he sees us as. And so it's helped me. I think I've just always grown up like, I can't get mad at them because my dad wouldn't be mad at me.
That's awesome.
For me, one thing that Chris said in his message that it actually, if I'm honest, struck a chord of fear in me, which is probably not good. But I have a senior in high school, and she graduates in less than 30 days. And it's a weird place to be. Like, I'm actually, I from the time she was born, I was scared of the day she would graduate high school because it's like, I don't want you to ever leave.
Yeah.
I actually want to sew you to me, and we will forever live like this, and it's going to be wonderful.
Yes.
But Chris said something that I was like, oh gosh, maybe she's not ready. Because he said, so many kids go to college and they get their education and they get into this job and they work for a year and then they hate it. And the reason is because they never knew themselves. They never knew their purpose. Because the way that you find your purpose is by finding your people, by finding your tribe.
Yeah.
And I just sat there going, who's her people? Who's her tribe? How do I help her find her purpose right now? We need to find her purpose, which, of course, is not my job. It's her job. But it is just very sobering as a parent to send your heart out there, and you just want her to do well. You want her to be happy. You want her to be successful in what makes her successful. Like, I don't care if she makes money as much as I care about her being full in life. Like, life is full. She knows who God says she is. She knows, what she wants to do. And so it's just sobering. Like, how do we do this? How do we find our tribe? How do we find our people? Like, I know how to do it for me, but how do I do it leading a family?
Yeah.
How do I lead my family into this? And there's so many transitions of life.
Yeah, Chris did talk about that. You find
Yeah.
your calling in community. And I think that's so true. And we talk a lot at Jesus Culture about not being isolated and community. And I mean, it's just really true. Like, how do you find what you were created to do when you're living on your own? You're an island. Nobody has access to you. You don't talk to anybody, Nobody's giving you input, good or bad. And so you really do find your purpose and your destiny when you find the right people, because those are the people who call you up and the people who call you out. The ones that are like, you're acting ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's not who you were created to be. Here, let me show you who you are. And
Right. Yeah, I have a high schooler as well. My son is a senior, so we're in exactly the same boat as CJ. And I remember he actually heard Chris preach this message at Jesus Culture, and he came home and he's like, Mom, I have to find my tribe.
Yeah.
And the question that comes up is how, if you don't have it. And it immediately reminded me of something that Banning preaches about. He talks about where has God put you right now? That would be my first answer to the question of how do I find my tribe, is to look at your life and recognize where God has put you. Are you a stay-at-home mom? Are you a working mom? Are you a grandma?
Are you single?
Are you single? Are you divorced? Your stage of life most of the time puts you right in a community already, and you just don't recognize it necessarily.
Or it doesn't look like what you think you want
I
it
think
to
a
look
lot of
like.
people, they reject what's in front of them because they want something else.
Yes, you think that especially in the church, I think we tend to think that only Christians or people who like us, who are exactly like us, can be our community. But yet, over the years, I have found the most amazing community outside of church. I mean, personally, for a journey that I am on right now is my husband and I started CrossFit at the ripe age of 44. And
That's awesome.
We are in pain every single day. But what overwhelms me is the community that we have found. And I am not sure who goes to church and who doesn't, but I have found it's just beautiful people that do not hesitate to speak value to us, and the most encouraging people I've ever seen. When I struggle to pick something up, I always hear, go, you've got it. And it's just been a journey that I've talked to God about so much, because I've been so surprised at a community that we have found, and it's outside of church. Can you believe it?
That's amazing.
Absolutely love it. So I would say that's the first step to the answer to that question is where are you in your life right now? Who is around you
I remember,
now?
CJ, when I was struggling in a time where I didn't feel like I had many friends, and you were like, well, who are you around all the time? And for you, like at one point, your kids were in gymnastics or something, and it was the moms on the bleachers with you.
Absolutely.
It's like that.
I love sports moms.
Don't discount the people that you're running into every day just because it's not a perfect small group with women who all read the word and you're all going through a Bible study or whatever. It's like, we are there on Friday mornings together because our kids are in swim class. Okay, that's my tribe for right now. It's all I can manage.
I was awkward. I would
yeah.
hunt. There was one woman that I decided was going to be my friend when my kids were in gymnastics, and I would save a seat for her, and she wouldn't sit there. And then I would weirdly move to sit next to her, and I won her over. She became my friend. But, you know, I was just intentional. I was like, I need a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 days a week, we are at gymnastics.
Yeah.
You will become that friend.
Yeah.
Right. So, and like the next step would be when you find that tribe, say you have the mom on the bleachers and you eye that person.
Yeah.
It's to be vulnerable.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody, I think we are all looking for the same thing all the time. And that is for connection and vulnerability. And to be vulnerable, it requires you to actually take a step and to be brave.
Oh, yes.
How do we like to be brave every day?
The other thing I would say is you're not unique. That sounds
Yeah.
so bad to say, but every single one of us has been hurt. Every
Yes.
single one of us has been rejected. Every single one of us has felt stupid and alone. But you can get so caught up in, I'm the only one. Look, they have a tribe. They've got friends. I'm the loser over here that can't figure out how to do it. And you're like, actually, we all feel like that at different times, and we all have to push past it. I feel like I just want to look at everybody and go, the TV shows aren't real. There are not 8 friends that hang out all the time
No.
and they don't talk to anybody else and they don't not get mad at each other and they all live across the hall from each other. That is not real.
Yeah.
It's entertaining,
Yeah.
but it's not real.
Yeah.
It takes more work. Erica, you talked about vulnerability, and Chris talked about that in his message, and just the importance of vulnerability, how it opens us up to other people. And we actually asked women from our local church that were at the Women's Community Night to comment on our local women's Facebook page how the night impacted them, how Chris's message hit them. And so I wanted to read a couple of the comments. And I wanted to read, the first one is from Cherie Davis. And she says, I think the thing that made me think the most was when he said, you won't find your calling until you find your tribe. It made me think about, what steps should I take to find a tribe? How do I approach this? How do I do this well? In which, this is what we talked about. This is what hit us so hard in every area, that every woman is wondering, how do we do this well? Marquita, she wrote, Chris's whole message pulled on my heartstrings for many reasons. But one of the highlights for me was how he, citing Brene Brown, defined authenticity. Letting go of who you think you should be and being who you really are.
Oh, that's so good. It's so hard,
So
but
good.
that's probably one of my favorite parts about Chris's talk too. You guys are going to love to hear that.
Yeah, and then one more I wanted to read was Andrea Smith said, I loved how authenticity is real beauty. It's so easy as a woman to try to be perfect and look and feel beautiful. The reality is that when we truly find out our uniqueness and value, because we are so loved by him, we overcome shame and we truly love ourselves, and then in turn love others and are free to live in a vulnerable life.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And if you guys could see us now, I mean, I'm sick right now. I am not appropriate to be seen in public. Women, you know what that means. I'm pretty sure my hair has been one dreadlock just mess in the back. And yet here we are, and we're doing what we do, and it's not perfect, and we're just figuring it out, and it's okay.
Yep. I'm nervous the whole day
Yep.
before we record a podcast.
We make CJ re-say a lot of things.
I have to say, I'm really bad at this actually, but here I am.
Yeah.
Erica thinks
You're
that we can understand her, but
I know. I talk and I hear myself and I'm like, nobody knows what I'm saying.
we all like her voice.
But I'm awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, we got that down.
Yes. So this is what this podcast is about. It's about you're okay right where you are. You might be listening to this perfectly poised in your
Yes.
power suit and at work
I
on lunch
hope
break,
you are.
eating a salad and keeping your figure, and that's amazing. You might have a poopy diaper on your head. I don't
Yes.
know.
Yeah.
And
Or you might be curled in the ball crying
Yeah.
and hoping, how am I going to make it to tonight? And you will.
yeah, how am I going to make it through dinner tonight with my family?
Yep.
And so we love that. That's the beauty of women. It's just that we're all over the place, and you're beautiful where you are. So we're really excited for you to hear Chris's message, the power of belonging. We want you to just dive right into it. Here it is.
I want to talk about the power of belonging. And about a little over a year ago, I was just spending some time with the Lord, and I was talking to him about the coming year and about what he had in mind for the coming year. So it's probably a little bit over a year ago. And the Lord said, this is the word of the Lord, that the subject of belonging will be the key subject for the next season. And so you belong, you believe, and then you behave. You belong, you believe, and you behave. It's interesting, oftentimes we come to church and we expect people to behave who don't belong or believe. And we reverse it. How many understand that people feel manipulated when we try to get people to behave who don't belong or believe? And there's a very powerful TED Talk. I've shared about it several times, and it's actually in the book Destined to Win. My son Jason, who's actually took Danny's place, Danny trained my son, and he's over family counseling in our church about, I think it must have been about 2 years ago, he sent me a link to a TED Talk, and he said, Dad, you got to listen to this TED Talk. And I'm kind of like, yeah, I listen to TED Talks when I feel like it, but not when my son tells me I need to. But I wanted to be able to tell him that I listened to the TED Talk, so I clicked on I had the basketball game on last year, or the year before, and I had the basketball game on, the playoffs, and so I clicked on the TED Talk while I was watching basketball, and I thought, well, I'll just run the TED Talk, and I'll multitask. I understand, ladies, I understand that this isn't something I'm very good at. But I turned the TED Talk on, and it was Brené Brown. By the way, that's B-R-E-N-E. She has the #1 TED Talk on TED, and it was called The Power of Vulnerability. How many of you have actually heard that? If you have not heard that TED Talk, you need to get on TED. If you've never listened to TED before, it's free. Just get on TED and listen to The Power of Vulnerability. So I clicked it on, I was literally just going to watch it enough to tell my son I watched it. And I had the volume down low, and I clicked it on my phone. And a minute into it, I paused the game, went in, turned it on my computer, and took 16 pages of notes. I watched it 20 times. By the way, I've never ever done that before. Except, of course, Bill's and Banny's messages. And so if you, just a little review of her. Brené Brown is a social researcher who has 3 degrees in social work. I don't know why you need so many. But she spent 7 years asking herself this question: is there one thing that all humans have in common, no matter their gender, or no matter their origin, their country, their ethnic group, their personality type? In other words, is there one core need that all humans have, no matter who they are or what they're like? And after 2 years, and by the way, you should get on the TED Talk, and whatever she says is right, and I'm doing it by memory. So maybe my facts won't be exactly accurate. But she studied for 2 years, interviewing thousands of people. And she learned this thing after 2 years of interviewing thousands of people from all over the world with all different kind of personality types. She said, we are, and I'm putting in her words, my understanding is that she was not a believer when she started this study, but at the end of 7 years, she became one. What she learned, in her words, is that every single human being is neurobiologically wired for connection. She said the one core need of every single human being in the world is that they need to feel like they belong. And so she began to study people who were connected and people who were not. And she said after year 2, she learned that the greatest enemy of connection is shame. And she said shame, this is her definition of shame. Shame, she said, condemnation, we would say conviction. She says condemnation says you did something wrong, but shame says you are something wrong. And shame says, if you got to know me, I fear I wouldn't be enough. I wouldn't be pretty enough, smart enough, have a good enough body. Whatever the culture values, I am not that. And I have a deep-rooted fear that you're going to discover me. That you're going to discover that I am not what you value. So she studied for 5 more years, a total of 7 years. And by the way, she had an emotional breakdown in the middle of it. She said, what's her comment? She said, a breakdown is often just a spiritual awakening. She ended up with a therapist, and she at the end of 2 years, when she discovered that shame was the number one enemy of connection, she realized that she had been riddled with shame since she was a little girl. And she crashed for a year and ended up in a therapist's office having to walk herself out of the very thing she was trying to solve for others. After that, she spent 5 more years dividing this survey group up into 2 groups of people. The people who have walked out of shame and the people who never left shame. And again, 5 years of surveying people, interviewing thousands of people from all over the world. And here's what she learned. She learned that everybody who walked out of shame, and by the way, she said, everybody in the world has experienced shame. She said, the more you deny that you have shame, that you've experienced shame, the more likely you are in the middle of it. She said, the people who have walked out of shame, even though they had other things in common, they all had this one thing in common. The people who had walked out of shame all were vulnerable. And all the people who were still in the midst of shame all refused to be vulnerable. Wow. And she said, vulnerability is the ability to be seen and known. Wow. And she says, vulnerability breaks the power of shame. Vulnerability is the birthplace of joy, happiness, creativity, belonging, and love. So she asked herself, why do these people become vulnerable and walk out of shame? And why does this group of people not? And after, again, listen to the talk. It's amazing. It's 16 minutes long. It's packed with stuff. It's got some cuss words in it. Just thought I'd tell you. I don't know. Some people are like, do you know they had cuss words in it? I don't know how they do life, but anyway, it has cuss words in it. Sorry, we ran shops for 20 years, so I didn't even know it had cuss words till someone told me. She said that the difference between the people who refused to be vulnerable and the people who were vulnerable and therefore broke shame and walked out of shame and into belonging. She said the difference between the 2 groups of people was the people who became vulnerable felt deep inside them that they were worthy. She called it a sense of worthiness. And she said, it's the belief that I deserve to be loved and I belong. You know, it's interesting. Jesus loved your neighbor as you love yourself. Now, this is not Brené's message. But how many of you know, until you love you, you can't love them? Do you know that you will never let anyone love you more than you love you? Here we go. Do you know that if someone tries to love you more than you love you, you will sabotage your relationship with them? Like that word as, how many know? That's a big word, as. You got to get your as in shape. Now you know where CJ gets it. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. The best thing you can do for your neighbor is to love you. Because until you love you, you won't love them. And by the way, if you think nobody likes me, how many know there will always be enemies? No matter how wonderful you are. In fact, the more wonderful you are, the more enemies you attract. And you got to have enemies because Jesus said, love your enemies, so you have to make sure you have some. I'm doing really good there. So you got to have enemies. I was going to say something else, but it slipped my mind. I'll get back to it. Oh, but if nobody likes you, that's not a commentary on them. It's a commentary on you. I love what Danny taught us years ago. He said, intimacy means into me you see. And what happens is if I watch people date. You know, we have Bethel School of Supernatural Dating. And Sherry and I, we have Cupid's anointing. Like, we think everyone should be married. We are always trying to fix them up. I told our second-year students this last week, I said, your goal, men, is to get engaged before you leave this place. Then I had them all raise their hand who were single, and I had the girls raise their hand. I said, just go now, find each other. But I got to tell you, I watched this pattern over hundreds of relationships. And when I'm going to use the word intimacy, I'm not talking about sexual intimacy at all in this example. I see guy and gal dating, they get along. Oh, he's wonderful. Oh, she's amazing. Then something happens. As they get closer and closer and closer, suddenly, this is, I call it the breaking point. Suddenly they get intimate enough where they begin to fear that the other person's going to see in them what they think they see in them. And all of a sudden, they begin to build a case against one another. Well, I don't know if he's the one. You know, you're 70 years old, you've dated 4,000 men. I'm like, frick, man, there's 7.4 billion people out there. Find one. It's not that hard. But I watch this. And they're like, oh, he's not the one. I mean, literally, Cherry can tell you, like, we have literally 20 years. I've been with the same pastor for 39 years. I've been with the same people for almost 40 years. So you get to see the children, the grandchildren, they come up. You watch patterns as you get older. It's part of, I think, what helps you give perspective to younger people, because you watch the pattern. And you're like, okay, I see this pattern. And I've seen this pattern so often, they're like, yeah, I don't know, I've dated, 1,800 men and I just can't find the right one. I'm like, I understand why you can't find the right one, because you're not the right one. I mean, you're not the right one for anyone because you don't like you. And if you don't accept you, you're terrified that he is going to get to know the you don't like. I'm saying that's a big ass. You got to love your neighbor as you love yourself. Are you following me at all? I don't know what's going on with you all. You don't laugh at my jokes, then you laugh at my teaching. And I have, over the years, had so many men and women in my office talking about the struggle they have trying to find someone. Listen, husbands, this is obviously not many husbands in here, but tonight, hopefully. But Paul exhorts husbands. What's the best thing a husband can do for his wife? Love your wife as you love yourself. Listen, I understand. I'm not talking about being arrogant, self-centered, or self-absorbed. I am talking about you need to be comfortable with you, or you're not going to be comfortable with her. I grew up with two violent stepfathers. I'm older now, and I look back, and I realize that I thought they hated me their whole life. I just realized now, not now, probably 10 years ago, they didn't like them. There was no possible way they could like me. They don't like them. And Brene Brown said that the people who walk out of shame become vulnerable because they know they're worthy of love. And nobody leaves shame without knowing in their knower that they deserve to be loved. And then she said this, and she said, everybody who becomes vulnerable knows they're worthy and has this next thing, she says, is courageous. And here's how she describes courage. She said it comes from the Latin word cur, which means heart, and it means to tell the story of who you are with your whole heart. She said everybody who became vulnerable because they felt worthy became courageous and told their real story from their heart. And she said everyone who could do that left shame. And then finally she said this, that everyone who left shame had this last quality. The ability, she said, authenticity. The ability to let go of who you think you should be so you can be who you really are. And she said, what makes you vulnerable makes you beautiful. What makes you vulnerable? Say this out loud. What makes me vulnerable? Makes me beautiful. You know, I've been in church since I was 18, so that's a while. And we pretend in the church. I hate it. I don't do it. I won't do it. It makes people mad that I don't do it. And probably, I so hate pretending, I probably react instead of respond at times. But it's that whole thing that we try to pretend like we don't care if anyone likes us. I just love Jesus. I don't care if anyone likes me. I'm like, really? You spent an hour in the mirror on the outside of you and didn't spend 5 seconds on the inner man. And you're trying to tell me you don't care what people think of you. I don't care what they think about me. You can't pass a mirror without looking in it. So, I'm just saying, just be real. Like, you can't solve a problem unless, how many of you know you can't conquer what you don't confront? You can't solve a problem if you don't know you actually have a problem. And I'm saying our world is so, we live in such a Photoshop pretend world. Everybody just like, you know, you don't see, nobody puts on Instagram the day you beat your kids. Here's Johnny, he's being a butthead. Put him on Instagram. No, everybody on Instagram's happy. We're all happy, we're all happy. Look at a happy kid, happy husband, happy, and we're all happy. With a happy church and a happy pastor. It's such crap. It's so pretend, I hate it. And now we have virtual church, right? Oh, you're our church, you're our pastor, we follow you on Bethel TV. Really? You're being pastored by a virtual pastor you virtually don't know? In a congregation you've never seen? With correction you've never had? I mean, that's convenient. This is the world we live in. It is all virtual. Like I don't know. Have you ever seen someone on Facebook and then you meet them? You're like, what the? Whoa. You must have had you didn't have a facelift. You had a face transplant. It's like, there's so much pressure to be somebody perfect. With a perfect life. And the thing is, all of us who do social networking, which I love social networking, it's so pretend. People tell you their beautiful stories, and you're like, it just makes you more miserable. I wish I had a perfect life. They don't either. They only have it on Instagram where they Photoshop for 2 hours before they put the thing on there. And they beat their stinking kid into submission so you get the picture. You cry again, I'm gonna kill you. Smile, I said smile, your father's coming in here with the whip. You don't wanna not smile for this Instagram picture. Everybody smiles when dad gets the whip. It's just like, it's so true though. 5 seconds after the kid takes the Instagram picture, you know, he breaks the lamp. It's like my kid broke the lamp today, he's such an idiot, you know? You're laughing because you all do it. I have dedicated myself to real on social networking. If I have bad days, I put it on there. Yeah, I had a really bad day today. Didn't know if I was a Christian. And I get paid to come to church, so I'm still going to church. But you worry. I mean, what would happen if we're just like, you know what, this is it. This is who I am. And see, here's the real kicker. We pretend so much because we're afraid that if we're actually who we are, people won't like us. And I'd like to propose that the people actually want someone who's real. I think it was Eric who said the most popular hashtag right now is unfiltered. No filter. No filter. Why? Because everybody wants a reality show. Why? I mean, reality shows aren't really reality shows either. We know that, right? They're all set up. But we're like, at least we want to think someone's real. Because I know I'm not. So it's like, be good to watch someone who's acting real. No, it's like we're all in this weird place where we all have a deep desire to stand out, and yet we still want to fit in. It's kind of the lion and the lamb, right? Like, I really want to stand out. I mean, I don't spend an hour in front of the mirror and try on 6 dresses to go to work at the office where only 2 other people work. To fit in. I do that to stand out. But then I stand out so much, I don't fit in. Robin Williams, the famous comedian who tragically took his own life, not too long ago said, people say the worst thing in the world is to be alone. He said it's not true. The worst thing in the world is to be with people who make you feel alone. That's the truth. You ever been in a room with 1,000 people and you feel like, and nobody reaches out to you? Nobody makes you feel like you belong there? I have. Boys join gangs to fit in. Somebody once said, you'll remember some of what you hear, you'll remember more of what you see, but you'll always remember how someone made you feel. I can't tell you how many times, like I'm learning this, like, I'm a pauper who's become a prince. So, I was in business forever. Like, nobody cares who you are when you're in business. I don't have anybody. Can I take a selfie with you? Sure. What side of the phone do you use? I mean, 20 years in business, nobody wanted to take a selfie with me. We didn't have selfies, by the way, but a Kodak or whatever, We didn't have any Kodak moments. But when people get to know you, they want to feel like they know someone important, who they think's important. Can we take a selfie with you? Can we? I went to see the Pope. I'm name dropping because I'm trying to be important too. My mother, who passed this year, they're all Catholics. They never went to church, but they're Spanish. So if you're Spanish, you're a Catholic. How many of you understand what I just said? Tell the people I didn't say anything wrong. So I told I've met all kinds of people, presidents, prime ministers, but when I told my mother I'm going to see the Pope, she said, you bring a selfie. You bring home a selfie because your uncle will not believe you met the Pope. So we went to see the Pope and we were in there for about 2.5, 3 hours. And the Pope don't like to take selfies. And I'm like, I have to get a selfie with the Pope for my mother. So he's walking around. I'm just trying to get close to him. Close enough. Click, 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 click. Click, click, click. You always remember the way people make you feel. I started to tell you that, for whatever reason, people care if I say hi to them. So for the first 10 years I was at Bethel, I get messages all the time. This is way before Facebook and all that. I get emails or little notes in my box. I walk right past you, you didn't say hi. Why would I do that? And so I'm like, I didn't see you. No, you looked right in my eyes. Sometimes I'm just tempted to say, yeah, I don't like you. But you know, I mean, if you, as a pastor, if you don't like someone, you get paid to like people. So you have to say hi to people you don't like. That was a joke, anyway. And now I'm realizing, like, people, like, you know, I used to think, well, I have to spend 10 minutes with someone so they feel like they're seen. And I don't have 10 minutes, so I can't do that. Now I realize, like, I just walk in church and there's people there and I give someone a hug and kiss them on the forehead or say hello or, hey, it's good to see you, anything like that. And I get every week 50, 60, 70 private messages. Thank you for hugging me this week. Thank you for kissing me on the forehead. I realize, like, if you have lots of favor, you don't have to do a lot for people to actually be impacted deeply. Do you know what I'm saying? And so if the Lord gives us favor, it's not for us, it's for them. And suddenly, you made someone feel amazing, and all you did was take 15 seconds and give them a hug as you walk past them in church or as you saw them in the grocery store. You know, we live in Redding. We have 9,000 people in our church on a Sunday. And there's only 90,000 people in our city. Yeah, you can't shop. You got to, like, put on a hoodie in the summer and you're like... people see you in the store and I'm like, yeah, hi, run. Kathy stops for everybody. I hate shopping with her. Anyway, I'm off track so far, sorry. I just have to tell you this one thing. I don't grocery shop, ever. So long that we went in the store, like, was that 2 months ago? 3 months ago. So we're in the store, she said, I'm gonna go grocery shopping, and she never says, do you wanna come? I said, I'm gonna come. She's like, well, because she said, I'm just gonna get a few things. I said, good, I'll come. So, you sure you wanna come? Yeah, you don't wanna stay in the truck? No, I'm coming. So I get in there and we get some stuff and we get to the counter and she goes, oh, I'm gonna grab one more thing. I'm like, okay. And the lady's like, do you have your own bags? I said, have my own bag? I said, lady, why would I have my own bag? And she goes, oh, I'm sorry, I'll just charge you for bags. What in the heck is going on? And I said to the lady, you're gonna charge me for bags? Because I didn't bring my own. When did this start? This is actually true, very true story, right? Just as I'm having that conversation with the lady with a shocked look on her face, like, where are you from? She walks up behind me and she goes, it's all good, I got this. I'm like, well, she wants to charge us for bags. She's like, do we have our own bags? She says, yes, I got our own bag. We bring our own bags shopping. This is a lady in front of us. Yes, we bring our own bags shopping. We have to bring our bags when we're shopping. She said, honey, just get in the truck. I'll tell you later, just get in the truck. She walked in the truck. I said, well, how long have we had to bring our own bags? She said 3 years. Is that a true story? Almost, she said almost. That's the way I remember it. We were born to belong. That's the point. You know, people, did I say something funny? Sorry. Is there something wrong? Everything up? Okay. We were born to belong. We were born to belong. We long to belong. I'm saying this is really important. If you don't know that you are neurobiologically wired to belong, or God says you were born to belong. If you don't know that, you're going to reactively get the need met instead of proactively. You ever be around people, you know, there's two kinds of people. People who bring happiness wherever they go, and people who bring happiness whenever they go. Yeah, you were laughing, but you know what I'm saying. It's the person who walks in the room and just sucking sound. There's a fine line between being self-aware and self-absorbed, right? And people get sucked in that vortex, and it isn't that they're bad people, it's just that they don't know that they need to belong. So instead of having a proactive plan to actually engage people and find relationship, they react and need to be the center of every place's attention. The other thing that's important is I have been telling people forever that everyone's trying to figure out, why am I here? Like, atheist is going, what's my purpose? I'm like, wouldn't that be a little irrational that you have one, being you're like a cosmic burp? I mean, if you happen by accident, why would you have a purpose? But everyone's trying to find their purpose. Like, why am I alive? I mean, Rick Warren wrote Purpose-Driven Life. It sold 6 million copies in like 18 months or some insane thing. What does that tell you? Everyone's trying to figure out, why in the heck am I on the planet? And I don't think you can find your destiny without finding your people, because your destiny is in your people. No, think about it. You're part of a what? Body of Christ. If you're the hand, it might be good that you know the knee, but you better have a relationship with the arm, or you don't have a destiny. I'm not being funny or theological. I'm saying, you want to feel like you belong, find the people you belong with. You want to know what you're supposed to do, you're not going to find what you're supposed to do until you find your people. You have the greatest hand in the world, but you actually don't have a destiny until you find an arm. And hopefully the one, if you're a right hand, whatever, anyway, it goes on. But my point is that people have become so independent instead of interdependent, and then we suffer because we never feel like we belong anywhere, because we don't fit anywhere, because we're so independent. And we say things like, the Lord is my shepherd. And the connotation is, you're not. And I don't do institutions. We're not talking about mental, we're talking about church. I have people write me all the time, it's like, do you believe in the institution of church? I don't know. I believe in people getting together who love God and doing stuff together and having some kind of accountability, like account for their ability. I think that's kind of important. And all I'm saying is that, what happens, we go to work and we go home and we order in pizza and we do church online. And we're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. How are you going to know what you're supposed to be doing when you don't actually have a relationship with anybody that you're supposed to be with? And then we're like, okay, well, let's send them to university. We send our kids to university without any idea who they are or where they're going. And we think, if you learn enough, you'll find your destiny. And they get 4- and 6-year degrees, right? How many of you know exactly where I'm going right now? They get a 6-year degree. They get out, they work 1 year in it and hate it. Listen, I am all for higher learning, but you're not going to learn your way into an identity. You're not going to learn your way into belonging. You're only going to relationship your way into it. And once you have a relationship and once you know what God's called you to do, then get as many degrees as you need to actually fulfill your purpose. I get it. But some people are thinking, if I get that next degree, if I get a PhD instead of a bachelor's or a master's, it's always another something level, then I will be important. Then people will admire me. Then people will want me around. Well, maybe it's the gym. I go build muscles and I'm like, and it's like, I'm all for muscles, you can tell. I missed going to the gym last week, and that's 25 years in a row. I actually do go to gym 2 or 3 times a week. I understand you wonder like, well, what are you doing while you're there? I'm working out. I got this invention. It's going to be a weighted fork. As you eat, you build muscle. You like it? Anyway, it's going to be patented. I'm saying guys and girls are at the gym. They're like, if I have a perfect body. Guys are like, if I am strong enough, then certainly people will want me. And listen, get strong. You understand, there's nothing wrong with anything I just said. But it's when I'm doing it to try to belong, to try to fit in. And I'm like, work out, that's great. Look beautiful, that's all great. Nothing wrong with that. But that's not going to make you fit in. Only thing that's going to make you fit in is actually being vulnerable and honest and earnest and real and actually building a relationship with somebody. Oh, here's a whole new idea. Why don't we just have a relationship? You want to be my Facebook friend? No, I don't want to be your Facebook friend. Every single day, I probably get 30 or 40 private Facebook messages, and people are like, they write this long, complicated thing, and she said this, and I said that, and she said that. I say, get a friend. I just write, get a friend. Get a friend. You can't. How am I going to solve your problem on Facebook? And then people enter in and they try to solve the problem. Like, stop. This person needs a real relationship with real people who aren't photoshopped. They need not a virtual relationship. They need a real relationship where somebody knows them. And I'm not saying they need it like punishing them. I'm saying that's what they need. That's what they're looking for. Like in the depths of their soul, they so want to actually be known. I am starving for the very thing I'm terrified of. I'm not sure when I'm supposed to be done. Can you give me a time? How long have I preached? Oh, I have? Okay, good. I forgot what time I got up here. No, I'm good. I'm just making sure I don't violate anyone. I don't care what you think. The Lord's Prayer begins with Our Father. I'm saying the root of our relationship with God, it's not my Father, it's our Father. I'm saying I've come in and I've become a part of a cosmic family. It's not my God, it's our Father. How many know God wanted to save the world? He called himself Father and sent a Son. I'm trying to say, it's in your DNA to be a part of a family. When you came to Christ, you were saved into a family with brothers and sisters and a father and a mother. And it's not your family, it's our family. Even when I pray, I remember that's our family. I want to give you 8 things it means to belong. Number 1, I carry the family name. I have an identity. At Bethel, people call themselves Bethelites. We don't call ourselves that. They say, I'm a Bethelite. I know it's a little offensive to some people. I don't know that we ever say it from the podium. But people are trying to say, I'm carrying the name. I want the name. I want to say, I belong to those guys. If this was a men's meeting, I'd tell you the story about David. And it says that, in fact, I'll tell you the story of David. In 1 Samuel chapter 22, it says that David went into a cave at Adullam. And there gathered to him 400 men who were discouraged, depressed, despised. They were outcasts. And it says this, and he became the captain over them. I love this part. I love the story of David. I'm sorry, I always get emotional when I think about it. At the end of David's life, it says in 2 Samuel chapter 23, it says, and these are the final words or the last words of David. And then it goes on to say, there's a paragraph there, and then it says, and these are the men whom David had. Another version says, and these are the men who belonged to David. And it names 33 men who changed history. But I love this part. It says, and these are the men who belonged to David. How many know they didn't have identity issues? They belonged to somebody. Somebody actually took ownership that these are my men. These are my men right here. I carry the family name. Number 2, I am known. I have a community. I actually have a community. It's not on Facebook. I actually have one. It doesn't have to be huge, but I have a community. Number 3, I'm accepted. I have a people. I have a people that know me. They laugh with me, they know my flaws, and they love me anyway. I don't know if there's anything more fulfilling than somebody who knows you intimately. They've been through they know your weaknesses, they know your flaws, they've seen you on your worst day, and they're your best friend. Kathy and I have been married, we're going on 42 years. And I love Kathy for lots of reasons. She's my best friend. She's my lover. She's been my business partner for 20 years. And then we've been in ministry together. We've never done anything apart. But what attracted me to her, and by the way, she's beautiful. And she was beautiful when she was young. She's beautiful now and she's beautiful then. I'm trying to make a point. But what attracted me to Kathy was not her beauty. It was the fact that I could be myself around her and she was still attracted to the real me. I was young, but I had many girlfriends, but I always had to put on my game face to be with them. And when I was with her, I got to be me and she liked me and she wasn't trying to change me. There's something about being accepted by a people who know you. We laugh at each other. We've been together so long at Bethel. We laugh at each other's flaws. We tease each other. I mean, it's brutal at times. I can remember so many times Danny would be like, I'd be like, and then I'd be going on in a leadership meeting and Danny would go, that's your thing. What thing? The thing you do all the time. It's that little dysfunctional thing you do. Now you're doing it to someone else. Whatever. You know, you just know each other. You've just been together so long. But the point I'm making is, but you're loved. And you know you're loved for who you are because they know you so well. Number 4, I am valued. Belonging means I am valued. I am significant. I play an important role on the bus. I'm not just on the bus. I'm not just in a seat on the bus. I play an important role in the family. I might be the encourager. I might be the doctor. I might be the wise man. Like Bill, we always say Bill's like Moses. People are like, what's it like to work with Bill? It's like working with Moses. He comes down from the mountain, he makes a decree, we all try to figure out how to do it. And we would argue with him, but his face is always glowing, so we're like, I don't know. Why are we doing that? Mo said we should do that. I don't know. You go up on the mountain and argue with him if you want. He'll be down in 40 days. Number 5, I share ownership. I have a place. I told the men, I met with the men the other night at the men's meeting, and I said to the men, when you go in a bathroom, I said, I never have hired anybody of any significance in this church without watching them walk down the hall or enter the bathroom or walk off a parking lot. And if they walk over a piece of paper on our parking lot, I will not hire them. Because if you only clean the things you take ownership in. And when I watch a man go into a bathroom where there's junk all over the place and walk out the same way, I'm like, that would have took you 18 seconds to pick up that paper and put it, or worse, throw a paper on the floor. I'm like, what am I saying? How many of you ever drove down a neighborhood and you see where the renters stop and where the owners start? I'm saying belonging means I'm an owner. I'm an owner. Like, that is not going to happen on my watch in my place. I remember many years ago, Sherry and I and Danny and Kathy, we had a friend. We used to have a friend that they owned Tops Market. Danny actually worked there. And they owned a couple of C-stores. And the guy, the brother that was overseeing the C-stores lived right next to me. And one night I went into one of the C-stores. I don't remember, a town of 3,000 people, very small community, just not very many stores in town. I walk in the C-store after a long night working in the shop. I'd stayed late. And I'm all dirty and I'm tired. And I get into the store and I'm just going to get a Coke or something. And I go to walk to the counter, and I see these two young guys, about probably 18, maybe 19. And I just go to walk past them, and I notice that they're stuffing stuff in their pockets. And I'm like, oh, this is not good, you know? So I decide to like kind of meal around for a little bit and let them go first. So I do that, and they get to the counter, and they each have a pack of gum, but they have their pockets stuffed with stuff they stole. So I'm like... So they pay for their gum. I have to make sure they're maybe going to take it out in a second. So I wait. They don't pay for the gum. And I say, hey, they just pay for the gum. And I say, hey, how about the stuff you have in your pockets? They said, oh, we don't have anything in our pockets. So I grabbed the one kid and I started shaking him and stuff falling out. I said, he stole all that stuff. And the kid behind the counter said, well, it's not my store. He works there. It's not my store. Oh, baby, I'll tell you. Yeah. It did hit the fan. And I said to both those kids, I said, you put that stuff back or I will personally call the police and I will personally press charges against you and I am going to talk to your boss tomorrow morning. And he got fired. But my point is, you are not going to let crap like that happen in your place. This is my town. This is my place. That's my neighbor's stuff. And what happens in this town matters to me. We are owners. We belong. I love Isaiah 62. One version says, and to your land will you be married. How many know you're not going to change what you don't take ownership of? I don't just have a people, I have a place. I have a place where I belong. Sorry, that probably wasn't a good woman's thing. You should see the guys, they went nuts. I share that story. Number 6. I share responsibility. I share responsibility. I have a role. So I don't just have a place, I actually have a role. I share responsibility. Number 7, I have common core values. I have the same DNA. We think alike. And for the sake of time, number 8, I have the same vision. We have a common purpose. I'm saying, how do I find my people? Well, these are common things that we have. These are things we have in common when we feel like we belong with somebody. I want to give you 6 qualities of belonging. These are 6 qualities, and I'll be done, okay? You okay? Number 1, I'm loyal. If someone talks to you about someone else, they'll talk to someone else about you. Backbiting and gossip is probably the greatest sin, socially acceptable sin in the church. Probably does more damage than sexual sin, than immorality, than nearly anything in the church. Backbiting, disloyal. How many understand that if I'm loyal to you, I stand with you? If someone talks about my friend in my presence, they don't have to talk about him to me, but if they talk about him in my presence, they need to get a piece of me. They need to get a piece of me. Did you hear me? I can't stand by and even listen without comment. If I don't comment, people think that I'm with them. I have to say, you don't know that person. That was rude. Something besides, I'm afraid they might reject me. They just rejected your friend right in front of you. They just demeaned and defamed your friend in front of you. That matters if you belong. Number 2, sacrifice. If I belong somewhere, one of the attributes of belonging is that I sacrifice for people. I actually sacrifice, I do something beyond convenience. I'm not there, I'm sorry, This sounds so negative tonight. Let's try this again. I sacrifice for people. I'm not just a consumer, I'm a contributor. I've come to give. I got in the, number 3, qualities of belonging. I'm honest. We can tell each other the truth. Proverbs puts it this way: faithful are the wounds of a friend. Deceitful are the kisses of an enemy. We can actually tell each other the truth. And I understand there's a big difference between speaking the truth in love and loving to speak the truth. Jesus said, no greater love than a man has this, that he lays down his life for his friend. But a lot of people are laying down their friends for their life. I understand. So when I'm talking about honesty, I'm not talking about killing someone with kindness. Number 4, trust. Part of belonging is that I'm trustworthy. Number 5, I'm authentic. I'd rather be hated for who I am than loved for who I'm not. And number 6, I don't give up. I persevere. I love this. Bill said, I am of the generation that doesn't throw things away when they break. We fix them. I want to invite you to a place of vulnerability. I want to invite you to a place of vulnerability. I want to challenge you, first of all, to confront the fact that you want to belong. I'm saying you have all the feelings, but if you haven't actually said, oh, I know why I feel like that. I actually want to fit in. I actually want to have friends. I actually do want to be liked. It does matter to me. And then I'll start building a plan. Lord, teach me how to actually be a noble woman who fits in with grace and finds my place, not through seduction, not through forcing my way into something, not through being the loudest person in the room or dressing a certain way so nobody can ignore me. I see people walking down the road. I know you see them too, and I don't have any problem with tattoos or piercings, so hear me. But some people are pierced and tattooed in a way they're just starving for attention. Just walking down the road, just like, you will not ignore me. You all know what I'm saying. I mean, why would you do that to yourself? Because I am starving to be seen. And sometimes we don't do all that, but we're starving to be seen. And Lord, help me to find a people where I actually have a place and I belong. Uh-oh. Years ago, we've been with Bill, as I told you, a long time, and we came to Bethel 19 years ago to start the school ministry. We came to start the school ministry. That's a whole long story, but there was really a beautiful thing that happened 2 years before that. Bill had gone, was our pastor in Weaverville, Danny and Sherry's pastor, our pastor, and then he had left to pastor Bethel Church. And we hadn't seen each other for a couple years, a little bit, but not much. And so my son and daughter, my daughter and son-in-law invited him to speak at YWAM in Colorado. So Bill said, hey, why don't you come with me? You can see your kids, and we could spend the week together. Great. So we get to Colorado. It's snowing. There's 4 or 5 feet of snow on the ground, and they put us in this little cottage. It's YWAM, Youth Without Money. And so we're in, we love YWAM, by the way. So we're in this cottage. We're ministering to these, 60 young kids. But we're in this cottage at night. And it's a really small cottage. It doesn't have a kitchen or anything. It just has a bathroom and 2 beds. One bed goes this way, and one bed goes this way. just twin beds, and a bathroom right here. And Bill's sleeping on the bed that you have to pass to get to the bathroom. And we're in that cottage, I think, that little cottage for, cabin for 5 nights. And I have to walk by Bill in the middle of the night. I have to go to the bathroom every night. I get up in the middle of the night and I pass by Bill. And in his sleep, he's laying on his back saying, Jesus, I love you. Jesus, you're amazing. Jesus, I love you. In his sleep. I don't do that when I'm awake. By the 5th day, I was so messed up. And I would cry at night in the cabin. Get up to go to the restroom, I'd pass by Bill, and I'd lay in my cot and cry myself to sleep, longing. I was trying to, for 4 days, trying to put words to what was going on inside of me. And finally, the 5th day, I said these words to myself. I belong with this man. I was born to be with this man. This man brings out, he's like my Barnabas. Like, he brings out something in me. We got home and my wife was excited to hear about the kids because we haven't seen them for a while. And I walk in the house and she's like, how's the kids? And I'm like, I'm in love with a man. It's a little bit dramatized, but it was about that bad. Through a long story, that night we talked deep into the night. I cried most of the night just telling her what was happening, how God was moving in me, and how we were born to be with Bill and Benny. So this is just a really long story. I'm not going to tell you all that story, although it is a really fantastic story of a miraculous miracle in Kathy's life, and where God actually spoke to her audibly and told her to go to Bethel. We end up at Bethel. We're there for the first 3 years, and Bill and I are not getting along. We are not getting along. And I had this, you ever have this kind of fantasy what it's going to be like? It wasn't like that. And Bill's a wonderful person, by the way. It wasn't on his side. I just hadn't worked for anyone for 20 years. And, now I had a boss. And Sherry can tell you, he doesn't really boss anybody, but it's just the idea that I had a boss. So anyway, a church was coming up on the coast, and I knew they were going to ask me to be their pastor, and I was very excited about it. And so I went in to tell Bill, hey, Kathy and I, we're going to probably move to the coast and take this church, but we'll still be in your network. And I was shocked when Bill said that he didn't want me to go. He goes, well, if that's what you want. And I thought, I bet you're anxious to get rid of me because I'm anxious to get rid of you. I didn't say that part, but. And Bill's like, no, I'd really like you to stay, but if you feel like you're supposed to go, then go. So anyway, shorten the story. So we're all thinking about we're going to go, and Kathy's like, I'll do whatever the Lord tells us to do. And then one night I had a dream. One night I have this dream. And in the dream, I see the church, which at the time was like 150 people. It had room for 1,000, but there was like 150 people. And I see the church in this dream, and it's packed. There's like 1,500 people inside, it's just a guess number, and there's like 2,000 people outside on the lawn, and they have speakers out on the lawn, and I'm speaking, and the Lord in the dream says, if you leave Bill, that's what will happen. And I'm like, that's awesome. Then the dream changes. You all know how dreams are. The dream changes, and in the next scene of the dream, I'm looking at the earth from like the Hubble telescope, and the voice in the dream says, but you'll never change that. And then he says in the dream, and only you and I will know you failed. It'll be our secret. That you built a big church, but you didn't touch the earth because you didn't stay with Bill. So months passed. I didn't tell Kathy because I know what she'd say. She's always on God's side. So finally, one night, it was about 3 months past, I was so miserable. And I said to God, what should I do? He said, I want you to make a lifetime covenant to serve Bill the rest of your life. I'm like, is there anybody else up there? What's the Holy Spirit think? Another couple months passed, and one night we're driving to a men's retreat. Bill and I are speaking at a men's retreat, and it's like a 6-hour drive, and I'm sitting there, and I'm so miserable. And Bill, and Cherry could tell you this too, Bill doesn't talk unless you talk to him. You could be in a car for 20 hours with Bill, and if you don't talk, he will not talk. And he'll go, wow, wasn't that awesome? That so connected. It's the truth. We tease him about it all the time. So I don't want to talk because I'm afraid if I talk, I'm going to say, I'm supposed to make a covenant with you. So I'm like, I can't talk. It gets dark. We're winding our way through the mountains, and I'm crying in the corner, as far away as I can get from Bill. I'm crying like a woman. And finally, we're like a half an hour from the retreat center. We've driven like 5.5 hours, and I finally turned to him. It's like 11 o'clock at night, pitch dark in the car. And I turned to him and I said, God told me I'm supposed to make a covenant to be with you the rest of my life. 5 months it took me to say that. He goes, oh, good. That was the entire conversation. A month later, we're driving somewhere with Kathy and Benny in the car, and Bill turns to me, and goes, hey, you know that thing you did with me a few weeks ago? I go, yeah? He goes, yeah, I'm with you too. I'm like, yeah, well, you're the boss. That's why you're with me. And that changed my life. It took another 2 years to actually reconcile our relationship. Danny helped us a lot, just working out, mostly me, just helping me to come to a place where I could humble myself and realize that I can't just be with Bill, like I actually have to submit to his leadership. But my point is, you don't really start growing until you find your people. The church wasn't born in a conference. It was born in a covenant. We take communion for covenant. We just never call it covenant. And I think the Lord wants to move us out of cohabiting into the covenant. And the side effect of that, or maybe the core purpose of that, is that we would find a place where we actually belong.
Guys, thanks for listening. I love that we get together, do this. You guys get to hear what God's doing in our community, in our midst. And I wish we could all sit in the living room so that you could see me be the real me, which is awkward and a little bit more inappropriate. Everybody's making fun of me right now because of how awkward I am once the microphone is in my face. But whatever, I'm really cool. Anyway, let us know what you think. We'd love to talk to you. You can reach out to us on Twitter @JC Podcast, and have a great month.